Hi, everyone. Happy Monday. It's still morning over here, but hopefully everyone's day is going well. I know it is the middle of September, the last month of the fiscal year, so things are a little nutty right now. So hopefully everyone is hanging in there. And thank you for joining our Basecamp briefings today. This is actually our 8th session. So we started this earlier in the year and have had a lot of great feedback. So thank you for joining. I'm super excited. And then if this is your first time, welcome to Basecamp Briefings powered by Summit Strategy. Like any serious climb, success starts at Basecamp. So this is where we break down complex RFPs, we sharpen our BD and capture strategies, and we give you the tools to navigate the terrain ahead. So welcome today. All right, so today we are tackling a topic that sometimes makes BD leaders squirm a little bit. We're going to talk about your brand. Not a lot of people love talking about that because it's viewed as fluffy marketing stuff. But here's the truth. If your website, if your pitch deck, or if your one pager, your capability statement doesn't match what your BD team is actually selling, that's not a marketing problem. That's actually a revenue problem. So I'm excited to dig in today. My name is Kristen Makember. I am the founder and CEO of Summit Strategy. I've spent my entire 23-year career helping government contractors and professional services firms win more work by building better systems, not just chasing shiny RFPs. And at Summit Strategy, we specialize in strategic BD, capture, proposal development, marketing, and training. And we support hundreds of clients and help them build sustainable growth engines. All right, here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about why this topic even matters. We're going to talk about some silent pipeline killers. We're going to go through what buyers actually care about and then how to fix your marketing assets and win more work, which is what we're all in it for, right? All right, so let's start with the elephant in the room and talk about why this even matters. Misaligned messaging doesn't just make your marketing and your materials look sloppy, it actually costs you revenue. So think about it for a second. Buyers in the federal space, or really anywhere, whether it's B2B, state and local markets, buyers are already skeptical. They're risk averse, they're overloaded, even more so this year. And they've got 20 vendors lined up out the street, the virtual street, who all claim to be innovative and client focused, just like every firm that says that. The moment that your story doesn't add up, they check out, and that happens very quickly. And then here's the big myth that I want to kill today. Brand is not just marketing fluff. It's not a nice to have. It's not just your colors, not just your logo. Your brand is fuel for business development. It either accelerates your pipeline or it chokes it out. So if your website, your pitch deck, your proposals are not all telling the same sharp buyer focused story, you're burning deals and you may not even really know it. So here's a reality check you probably also don't want to hear. Your brand has already lost you a deal. At some point, a buyer had a really great call with one of your BD folks on your team. They walked away interested. Then they went to your website or opened your capabilities briefing or CAPE statement or your pitch deck, whatever you call it, and it didn't line up. Something was off. Maybe it was outdated. Maybe it was vague. Maybe it just felt really small. And here's the kicker, you'll never know. They're not going to email you and say, hey, just wanted to let you know we cut you out of this opportunity because your one pager was garbage. No, they just moved on. That's the silent loss that I'm talking about. The deals that you don't even realize you were in the running for because your brand made you look like a risk. So that's why all of what we're talking about today matters. So now let's talk about how those silent losses actually happen. They don't usually come from one big blunder. It's the death by a thousand cut stuff. When your messaging is outdated, buyers don't tell you, hey, your content feels like it was written in 2010. They just stop replying. That's ghosting, and it's happening more than you think. When you position yourself as the company that can do everything, You don't look capable, you look unfocused. And buyers don't trust unfocused vendors with multi-million dollar contracts. And when your materials don't line up, your deck says one thing, your website says another, your proposals say something even different. You don't look like a safe bet. You look risky. And again, in procurement, risk gets cut fast. So these aren't loud failures, they're the quiet pipeline killers, the stuff that makes opportunities evaporate before you even get to that proposal stage. Here's another reality check for you. Buyers don't read, they skim. I talk about this all the time when I do proposal workshops. We forget that, there's a human on the other side. They're not robots, although we're going to talk about the bots here in a minute. They're real people with real stressors. They have deadlines. They have bosses breathing down their necks. They had a fight with their spouse this morning. They tried to get their kid to school and nothing went right. They're also reviewing your stuff on top of 10 other fires that day. If they can't figure out what's in it for them in the first 30 seconds, you're out, period. They do not have the time, they do not have the patience to decode your jargon or wade through 3 pages of boilerplate crap. So the test is, did we tell them, or the test is not, did we tell them everything we could do? The test is, can a stressed out contracting officer instantly see how we can make their job easier? If the answer is no, you're not even in the game. So let's put some actual numbers to this. You've got 8 seconds. That's the average attention span online. If your value is not obvious by then, they've already tuned out. You've got 3 clicks before a buyer gives up on your website. If it takes them longer than that to figure out who you serve, what you do, why it matters, they're gone. And then you've got one slide, one, to capture interest in your pitch deck or capabilities briefing. After that, you're either interesting them, getting them interested to learn more, or you're just losing them completely. This is the speed that your buyers are operating at. And remember, they're also juggling their deadlines, internal politics, a pile of other vendors, all the stuff in their personal lives. If you can't pass that 831 test, your message never even makes it into the conversation. And at the end of the day, buyers are going to only care about 3 things. First, clarity. Can I instantly understand what you do? And most importantly, why it matters? They don't want a buzzword salad. They don't want a laundry list of NAICS codes. They want clear language that even a stressed out contracting officer can digest in seconds. Second is proof. Anyone and everyone claims that they're innovative and client focused. If I have to see that on one more website or CAPE statement, I'll die. Everyone says that. But can you actually back it up? That's what your case studies, your past performance, your measurable outcomes, those are the receipts that buyers want to see. And then third is confidence. Do you look like a company that's ready to deliver? Not just in your proposal, but across everything, your website, your one pager, your deck. Even if your brand looks sloppy or inconsistent, buyers are going to assume that your delivery is going to be the same. And we don't want that. They don't want that. So clarity, proof, and confidence, that's the trifecta that we're going for. And if you can nail these 3 things across every touch point with your customers, you're already going to be ahead of most of your competitors. So let's dig into each one of these. Here's a little bit more about what I mean for clarity. So let's look at a before statement. We provide IT solutions across multiple industries. It sounds fine, right? But it's actually it's meaningless. It doesn't really say anything. It doesn't tell me what you actually do, who you serve, or most importantly, why I should care. A contracting officer reads that and thinks, great, so do 10,000 other companies, move along. Now let's look at the after. We modernize VA's IT systems so veterans receive benefits faster. Boom. Suddenly it's clear. I know who you serve, what you do, and the outcome that matters to me as a buyer. This is the difference between jargon that makes buyers work to figure it out and plain language that instantly answers what's in it for me. And remember, if they have to guess, they're going to move on. Clarity wins. All right, so here's where most companies lose buyers. They confuse claims with proof. So let's look at it before. We have extensive experience delivering projects on time. Every freaking contractor says that. It's like saying we show up to work. It's not proof, it's just filler. So now let's look at an after. For DHS, we reduced case processing time by 40% in 12 months. That's concrete. It names the client, which I know we can't always do. It gives a measurable result and it shows a clear time frame. This is the kind of detail that evaluators look for both in proposals and in early BD conversations. Numbers cut through the noise. A contracting officer can't validate your extensive experience, but they can absolutely track a 40% improvement. So when you start building your case studies, your one pagers, or your proposal past performance sections, don't just settle for these generalities and these empty claims that don't really say anything or mean anything. Again, buyers want receipts, not just a bunch of adjectives. All right, third, confidence is about whether you look like a safe bet. And the truth is, buyers are looking for reasons to cut you. So look at before option. The website has no case studies, no contract vehicles. The one pager is just a wall of text, and proposal resumes read like copy paste from your get a job resume, which is very different than the resume that goes in a proposal. None of that screams, we're ready to manage a multi-million dollar federal contract. It screams risk. Now let's look at the after. The website proudly lists contract wins, client logos, again, which I know we can't always do, certifications. The one pager uses call out boxes, stats, bold differentiators, something that a buyer can actually skim when they're busy and just skimming, because let's be honest, that's what they're doing. And then your resumes are branded, they're clean, they're written to emphasize your accomplishments, your people's accomplishments, not just job duties. So that difference is what tells a contracting officer this team is polished, consistent, and credible. And again, credibility is the currency in GovCon. If you don't project confidence across your assets, buyers are not going to take a gamble on you, especially if you're newer to that agency. All right, here's the part that a lot of teams also don't want to hear. Your website is part of the evaluation, even if it's not officially scored. Again, think about it. Evaluators are human. They're going to Google you. They're going to click on your website. They're going to compare what you're claiming in a proposal with what you've put out there publicly. If your proposal says you're experts in cloud migration, but your website looks like a grab bag of IT, janitorial, HR services, you've just created doubt. And remember what we said earlier, doubt equals risk, and then risk is going to be what gets cut. Agencies are even starting to experiment with AI tools. I know there's a lot of chatter about this that are checking and cross-checking proposals against websites to make sure your capabilities align. So again, if that story doesn't line up, the software is going to flag you before a human ever reads your proposal. So bottom line, your proposal and your website are not two separate worlds anymore. They're two sides of the same credibility coin. And this is something really important to think about because your website is typically owned and updated and managed by your marketing team. And then your sales, BD, RevOps, whatever you call it, is where proposals happen and BD conversations are driven from. Those two teams often interact and work very differently and very much in silos. But these two things have to start being merged together to tell a consistent story so that you're not losing out on opportunities. All right, so here's what brand proposal misalignment actually looks like in the wild. Let's say your proposal says that you have a lot of AI/ML expertise, but your website, no mention of AI anywhere. That doesn't scream expertise. It looks like you're just padding your capabilities. You might claim nationwide reach in your proposal, but your website only lists one local office. That tells the evaluator either you're exaggerating or you're not keeping your house in order. Both are bad looks. Or you position yourself as cybersecurity experts, but your website looks like a generic IT shop, broad, vague, outdated. That disconnect makes the buyer question whether you're specialized enough to do the work that they need. Again, evaluators are already cautious. If your brand and your proposal don't tell the same story, they don't sit around giving you the benefit of the doubt, they just move on. And then you'll never know that you were cut from the equation. All right, so we just looked at how misalignment between your proposals and your brand kills credibility. So let's now start talking about what the solution could be. Every company needs these 4 assets dialed in because these are what buyers actually see before they even read your tech volume in a proposal. Your website has to tell the right story. If it doesn't, you've already lost them. Your pitch deck or your capability briefing needs to align with what your BD team is saying in the room with your prospects, not a Frankenstein deck that everyone is editing on the fly. Your one pager has to capture attention fast. It's the leave behind that actually gets skimmed. And then your case studies or your past performance write ups should be short, specific, and measurable. Buyers don't want a 2-page essay, they want proof and they want receipts and impact. These are not just marketing nice to haves, they're the foundation of trust that lets evaluators and primes believe that you can deliver their most important project. All right, so I know you're probably thinking, okay, that's a lot. Where do we even start? So here's your answer. Fix these 3 things first. Start with your one pager. Make it buyer focused. Don't list all the things you do. Frame it around the buyer's problem and your solution. If a contracting officer or a prime can't scan it and instantly see, oh, they solved my issue, it's just wasted paper. Next is your pitch deck. Keep it lean, keep it short and sweet, 10 slides max. And every slide has to answer that question, so what? If it doesn't, cut it, get it out of the deck. Buyers don't want a dissertation. They want confidence that you know what matters and that, again, you can help them solve their problems. And then finally, your case studies. These are gold when done right. They should be short, they should be visual, they should be metric driven, 1 page, not 3. They should be focused like a clear challenge, a solution, and a result. That's how you should write them. And make sure that you're including numbers that prove that you can deliver. If you fix these 3 assets and start here, you're going to immediately give your BD team sharper tools and cut out a ton of potential credibility gaps. All right, here's another reality check, and I see this all the time. I saw this when I lived in corporate and worked in corporate. I see it now with our clients. If your BD team is moonlighting as PowerPoint designers, your brand is not doing its job. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've got 5 different versions of that deck floating around. 5 is probably generous. There's probably more like 10 or 15. Everyone's hacking together their own slides. There's different fonts, there's different messaging, there's different graphics. It looks like a ransom note. But here's the problem. That Frankenstein deck doesn't just make you look sloppy, it makes you look inconsistent. Buyers are going to see one story in a meeting, another story in your one pager, a third in your proposal. That's the credibility gap, and it's going to cost you. So, your BD team, they're great at what they do, but they should not be focused on playing graphic designer at midnight. They should be focused on building relationships, chasing opportunities. So if they're instead spending their time Frankensteining slide decks together at midnight, that is the clearest signal that your brand is not giving them the tools that they need to do their job successfully. So if your BD team shouldn't be stuck playing designer, what do they actually need? These are the tools that make them faster, clearer, and more consistent. First, you need simplified tools. You don't need a 40-page deck that nobody wants to scroll through. You want to think, short one-pagers, short decks, reusable templates, stuff that they can grab and go and make their job easier. Second, you want visuals that sell, not walls of text, not clip art, God forbid, no clip art, but clean graphics that tell the story at a glance. If your deck looks like it came out of 2007, you've lost the room before you even said a word. And then third is a messaging playbook, which is probably the most important, and we'll dig in here in a second. This is how you're going to get consistency. Every BD person is out there telling the same story, not 10 different versions. That playbook is what makes sure that your message stays sharp no matter who's in the room. So when your team has all 3 of these things, they stop wasting time reinventing slides and they start doing what they're actually paid to do, which is build relationships and move opportunities forward. All right, so let's talk about that messaging playbook. And this is really, you can think of this like the cheat sheet that keeps your whole team on the same page, literally. One of my favorite things to do is build these out for clients because it really does make an impact. It's got 5 clear parts. So, one is an elevator pitch. 1 or 2 sentences that explain what you do and why it matters. Keyword, why it matters. Not just jargon, not just buzzwords, not a bunch of capabilities, the impact that you make for your customers. Your core differentiators, short, memorable points that actually stick, not a laundry list of 12 bullets, but 3 or 4 that your team can repeat in their sleep. Proof points, case studies, past performance, hard numbers, the receipts that show that you can deliver. Ready to use language, boilerplate snippets that your team can drop into proposals or BD calls without rewriting from scratch every time. Great starter language should be used to customize and tailor to the opportunity versus having to reinvent the wheel every time you go to write something or draft an email to a client or potential client. And then guidelines are the tone, the do's and don'ts, the boundaries that keep you sounding like the 5 other different companies that do what you do. So when you've got this playbook, your whole team is telling the same story, no matter what, and no matter who's in front of the buyer. And then again, consistency is what builds trust, and trust is what gets you awarded. All right, I talk about this a lot when I talk about proposals, but this is the same principle in your marketing materials. It's not about you, it's about them. This is really the golden rule that we have to follow in everything we do. Buyers don't care about your origin story, your history, your org chart, or the fact that your founder once had a dream in their garage. Great, so does everyone. They care about how you make their life easier, how you save them time, how you reduce their risk, how you get results faster, how you make their life easier. So every asset that you put in front of them, whether it's your website, your deck, your one pager, your proposal, should all be focused on them. If it's all about you, you've already lost their attention. So here's a quick test. Go back to your one pager or your Kate statement and read it as if you were the buyer. Does it answer the question, what's in it for me? If it's not helping you, then it's hurting you. All right, here's another reality check. If you can't say it, they won't buy it. If your team cannot clearly explain what you do in 30 seconds, why in the hell would a contracting officer or a prime waste their time trying to decode it? Buyers don't just like sit around thinking, oh, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. No, they move on. They're busy. They don't have time. This is where that messaging playbook comes back in. It can force clarity and consistency inside your team so that you project clarity and confidence outside, and clarity is going to be what gets you in the door. All right, so here's a quick gut check that you can run the second this session ends. Go ask your team, how do we describe what we do in 30 seconds? I'm going to guarantee and bet you that you're probably going to get 3 different answers if you ask 3 different people. And that means that you've got a consistency problem. And again, inconsistency inside equals credibility gaps outside. So if your people can't tell the same story, buyers are going to get muddled. They're going to have a confusing picture of who you are, and confusion isn't what's going to close deals. So that messaging playbook is not just a nice branding exercise; it's insurance that every BD call, every proposal, every deck, every one pager is reinforcing that same story. So let's clear this up too. A refresh that we're talking about, refreshing your materials, does not equal a rebrand. Most teams start to panic when they hear the word brand. They think 6 figures, 6 months, and a new name that nobody asked for. And that's not what I'm talking about. What you actually really need is probably more of a refresh. Update your messaging, tighten your visuals, clean up the tools that your BD team is using. Make sure especially make sure that you don't look like a 2024 consulting firm. We all know what happened to those. The administration took one look at strategic synergy solutions and said, nope, too fluffy, contracts are canceled. This is not about reinventing your company and what you do. It's just about making sure that your brand doesn't scream fluff when buyers are scanning for credibility. Refreshing how you show up so you actually look like the company that can deliver the work you're already winning. Here's what a brand refresh probably really looks like. It's not a, 6 figure, $100,000 plus reinvention. It's just a cleanup job. So first, update your messaging, your visuals, and your key assets. That means tightening your one pager, making your deck usable, making sure your website doesn't look like it was last updated during the last administration. Second, you want to focus on credibility and alignment with sales. This is not about just looking pretty. Like a lot of people think brand and marketing is just, oh, let's make it look pretty. It's really about making sure that every asset that your BD team uses actually reinforces what they're saying in the room. That's the difference between fluffy marketing and real revenue support. A refresh is not about changing your name or about redesigning your logo for the fifth time. It's about making sure your brand doesn't scream risk when evaluators or primes check you out. Practical fixes done fast that make your team more effective. And then when in doubt, think like the evaluator. At the end of the day, they are asking three questions. Can they really do what they claim? Have they done it before at this scale? And then do they look like a reliable, low risk partner? That's it. That's the game. Your proposals, your website, your one pagers, everything should be helping evaluators check these boxes before they ever dive into the proposal that you submit. So if your brand raises doubts on any of these points, if it looks inconsistent, if it looks outdated, or if it looks too vague, you've already made their job easy and not in a good way. You've made it easy for them to cut you, and that's not what you want. All right, so let's make this super practical. Here are three things that you could do tomorrow without hiring a branding agency or spending six figures. First, audit your top three assets. Look at your website, your one pager, and your pitch deck. Do they actually tell the same story? Do they look credible next to the claims you're making in proposals? I think that comparison is so important. We pour our heart and soul into our proposals, making sure that it tells the right story, focuses on impact and win themes and discriminators and all that stuff, but we don't put the same care and energy and time into your website, your pitch deck, your one pager. Those are just marketing assets that are more boilerplate. So that disconnect really helps. Once you get over that disconnect, it really helps make a difference. Second, go ask your BD team. Get into a meeting with them and ask, does this match what you say when you're in front of buyers? Put your CAPE statement in front of them. Does this match what you say? If the answer is no, then you've just spotted your first credibility gap. And then third, pick one thing to fix this quarter, a quick win. Maybe it's rewriting your one pager. Maybe it's updating your case studies. Maybe it's cleaning up that Frankenstein deck. Pick one, knock it out, and you'll start seeing the difference right away. This is not about boiling the ocean. God knows we don't have time to do that. It's about tightening the story piece by piece so that your brand actually helps you win instead of holding you back. Of course, you can also call in the experts if you need help. That's what we do. We do everything from helping build your foundation, uh, rewrite your messaging, tighten your messaging, create sales and BD assets that help your BD team. Obviously, we help through the full life cycle of proposals, through orals, through training. But at the end of the day, this is not about just looking good. It's about winning the work. And if your brand is helping you do that, it's costing you. If you're sorry, if it's not doing that, it's costing you. So our job is to help make sure that your brand and your marketing actually fuels your growth, not just holds you back. So reach out if you need help. We do everything from messaging audits, down to the tactical, actually rewriting and redesigning your assets. Up next is we're doing a very quickly scheduled over the weekend, last minute Basecamp briefing on Wednesday to talk about the Missile Defense Agency SHIELD IDIQ that just dropped last week. Proposals are due October 10th. We are saying that this is like the Oprah of IDIQs. You get a contract, you get a contract, you get a contract. It's very vague for a reason. And if you are doing any sort of DoD work, or interested in doing it, I would seriously consider looking at this vehicle. So you can come on Wednesday to hear us dissect it and talk about all the requirements. It's actually a pretty easy lift to get your proposal in by October 10th. So hope to see you there on Wednesday. And then as always, here's my contact information. If you have any questions or are interested in talking about how we can help you refresh some of your BD assets, your website, your CAPE statement, your pitch deck, even your proposals, let us know and I'm happy to chat through how we can help. So I don't see any questions. So I'll go ahead and let us off the hook here and get you back to your day. So thank you for joining and look forward to seeing you guys on Wednesday where we'll talk about the SHIELD IDIQ. All right, have a good day.